Hello lovelies, welcome to my December bullet journal setup and also happy Christmas. The day that I'm filming this voiceover, it is November 19th, but for some reason I'm feeling the Christmas vibes really early this year, so I decided to really lean into that for my December bullet journal setup and do something that's vaguely inspired by Christmas. Before I get into it too much, I do want to apologize. The lighting in this video goes in and out because I did film this video over 3 separate days and they were all kind of cloudy, so the lighting is not the best, but I hope you guys don't mind and also enjoy this setup. So like I said, this is a vaguely Christmas-inspired bullet journal theme. Whenever I was planning it, I knew I wanted to do something related to Christmas, but nothing explicitly Christmas. Like I didn't want to do Santa Claus, gifts under a Christmas tree, like ornaments, none of that. I wanted to do something a little more subtle, but also give a nod to Christmas. And I also wanted to use the colors light blue and red because I feel like those colors are great for December. Obviously, the red leans into the holly, the poinsettias, the Christmas vibes, but then light blue is just such a December color to me. Like it's the beginning of winter, but I don't want to draw anything super dark, so I want to have like light skies while it's still snowing. So those are kind of the colors that I wanted to pull into this theme. And with all that together, I created this theme of a cabin in the woods, kind of cozy, but also the sky is really bright, it's snowing, there are some Christmas vibes, and I'm just super happy with how this theme turned out, and also the ways that I had edited this theme later on in the video, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. I did a really similar theme idea last year where I wanted to do something kind of Christmas inspired, but not like explicitly so. So last year I did a reindeer theme, and obviously a reindeer is kind of Christmassy, but I drew the reindeer pretty neutral colors. I used a lot of green and pink in that setup. And then I also added, snow and clouds and everything, but it wasn't like very, obviously Christmas. And I feel like this is something that I'm going to be continuing to do for a little while. I just kind of like how it's subtle, but it also is in my style, but it also is December and Christmassy. And overall, my December theme was my favorite theme last year in the video that I ranked all my bullet journal themes, so hopefully this setup will also be one of my favorites this year. So I was looking back at all of my bullet journal themes from the year so far, specifically the second half of 2023 in this journal, and I realized that I've been experimenting a lot recently, which is totally a good thing. I mean, last month I did my classic like alcohol marker drawing that I stuck in with sticker paper. I've also done just plain sticker themes, I've done scrapbooking themes, I did a black and white theme, or at least a mostly black and white theme with cross hatching. However, for this month, since it's the last month of the year, I decided to just go back to something super simple, basically like where my bullet journaling method style started, and that is just simple black line art and water-based markers colored in like a coloring page. It's again super simple, but I think it's really effective, and for some reason I was just craving like simplicity this month. I posted an Instagram reel and YouTube short about this, but although I really loved my November theme last month, I loved how extra I was with the lion drawings and the lioness queens and all that with the alcohol markers. I thought they were super cool. I used a type of sticker paper that I haven't used before, and because of that I think that I oversaturated the paper a little bit. Usually this doesn't happen with alcohol markers, but for some reason this paper couldn't actually hold this ink as much as I usually can, and so that made the ink like bleed onto the other side of the pages. Not through the paper, but like when 2 pages close together, there'd be an imprint of the art on the left side from the right, if that makes sense. So again, I posted an entire reel and short about this, but I was really frustrated with that, and because of that I've had a hard time like being inspired to create in my journal for last month's theme, which is so disappointing because I was really happy with that theme. I really was excited to like draw different like lioness queens and all that, but it just never really worked out because I did a couple drawings that kept bleeding over, and then I got annoyed with it, so I just stopped actually adding art into my spreads, which is super unfortunate. So this month I really wanted to create something that I knew would not fail, just simple coloring in with water-based markers. These are mostly Tombow de brush pens and alsooo watercolor markers, and I'll link all my stationery down below. But I knew that this was not going to fail me. I just wanted to go back to my roots, and I'm actually really happy that I did this. It did take, like I said, 3 different times of filming for me to actually complete this setup, but it was just super nice to sit down, put a show on, listen to something in the background where I basically just like colored for a couple hours. It's such a vibe, so I definitely recommend this. If you're struggling with your bullet journal, if you're feeling a little lost on inspiration, just go back to your roots. What did you used to enjoy? What is your comfort mode of bullet journaling? I love experimenting in my journal all the time and trying new things, but for the final month of this year, I just wanted to go back and do something simple, and I think it worked out super well. Just want to pop in here and say that in the spirit of Christmas, I am planning on posting filming not one video, but 2 videos every week during the month of December as a little Christmas gift for all of you. So double the content, double the goodies, and I hope you guys enjoy. So like I said a little earlier, I wanted to incorporate a lot of Christmas colors into this drawing, but also kind of subtly and vaguely. So I wanted to include the red and the green, but I didn't want to create anything that was like super obviously Christmas, right? So the pine trees, of course, make sense as the green because they're trees and Christmas trees are green, so that it correlates together. But I wanted to make sure that this was like distinctly an outside forest kind of feel, so I added snow onto each of the trees. Now this was a struggle for me to figure out kind of how to do it. It was like, okay, I knew that there was supposed to be like white spots in between the green, if that makes sense, but I didn't know how to draw it to make it look like actual snow is draped over the leaves, because also with this almost cartoonish style of drawing, I wasn't like individually drawing each branch. I was just drawing little blobs to make it look like a bunch of branches together. So then I had to draw other blobs in it and leave that negative space white for me to keep it as snow. And it was just kind of, for some reason, really hard for me to wrap my brain around. So I had to really think about it. But basically what I did was I drew little squiggles on like the skinniest points of the tree, and then I drew lines under that. So that was basically going to be the snow part, because the skinniest spot on the tree was kind of like where a new row of branches would start, and therefore that's where the snow would collect, if that makes sense. So this is kind of how I did it. I looked at a couple reference pictures to kind of make sure I was doing something, you know, vaguely scientifically correct about, you know, how gravity makes snow fall on trees. This sounds so stupid, but for some reason it was super hard for me to actually draw this, so I had to really think about it. And if you look up close, it's not perfect, but like from far away, I think it gives the vision of snow on trees, and I think that it works, you know, it does work. Back to my discussion about color before I went on a rant. So I used color in the image because the borders around each of the windows and also the chimney is red. Now I understand it's kind of vague and it's kind of hard to see this far away, so I decided to add this like red grid onto the calendar to mark the days that we're not going to be actually in December. And in hindsight, I actually hate this. I think it's ugly. I think it's way too dark and way too contrasty, and it's like such an eyesore in the middle of the page. But don't you worry, because I did realize that while filming, so later in this video I'm going to go back and change this, but for now I kept it and we'll come back and fix it a little later. Okay, finally we're moving on to the next page. If you guys thought that 5-6 minutes of me drawing that original page was long, imagine sitting there for over an hour and a half, because that's how long it took me to draw that. But anyway, this next page over on the left is going to be a quote page. Well, not even a quote, but it's just like a little word page, because I wanted to do something to kind of fill up this empty space right here. I had nothing to put there. And then on the right is going to be a goals space to mark all of my goals for December, and also a small habit tracker. So like I said, it's not really a quote, but I just put hot chocolate weather on the left because, okay, I am lactose intolerant, but your girl loves hot chocolate, and so maybe once this year I'll treat myself to that. And I feel like hot chocolate weather just kind of, you know, hints to the cozy cabin and like how everything's warm and toasty inside, but also it's like snowy and winter wonderland outside in this magical forest, and I feel like that ties in this whole theme together. No, I did not draw hot chocolate ever in this theme, but for some reason I feel like it worked for me. Now, I don't know if you guys remember, but on the cover page, the first page that I was drawing, whenever I outlined everything in line art, I avoided lining like the top of the arc, so like where the sky was in the picture. I wanted to do this because I wanted to do like a fun little design choice where the sky just like wasn't line art, but everything else was. However, I feel like whenever I looked at it after it was all done, it looked super unfinished. So after I finished drawing the calendar spread, I went back and drew the black line over that arc to kind of fill it in. The same thing happened on this page. So my original design idea was to not have an outline around where the blue sky area was going to be. I just kind of wanted to leave it just in marker and kind of have that design choice, almost like a way to push the blue like as a secondary background and keep the cottage and the trees in the foreground and more important, you know. However, again, this looked super unfinished, so I ended up outlining this as well. One tip I have for you guys, as you can see, I drew the calligraphy first. That way, whenever I did the line art in the big circle, I knew where to stop my pen. Sometimes, although I do sketch out everything first in pencil, I'll actually draw a little bit off of the pencil, and so I don't know exactly where my calligraphy is going to go. So to make the words pop out from the image, I made sure to letter those first, and then I went in afterwards and did the line art. So if you guys want to make the same effect, I would recommend that 100%. I didn't realize while filming this, but I did leave a couple details out of the drawing on the left, which I'll come back and fill in a little later. Like I said, I was in a rush because I had to leave. I had to go to a hockey game, and also the lighting was bothering me on the right. So all sorts of issues going on, but I'll come back and fix it later. I wanted to do the habit trackers in a little bit of red to add that pop of color that was missing, since everything else on this page has been a little bluish and greenish. Like I said, I feel like the red kind of ties in the Christmas vibes, otherwise it would just be like a winter forest theme. So I feel like that was super important to add into this page. Another thing I like was I deliberately wrote habit tracker like vertically on the side. This is something I do every now and then to kind of fill out some extra space because I wanted to add 6 habit trackers in. However, there was no space to add a header on top, so I just moved them to the side and put the header on the right. And you know what? I feel like I can just be creative in my journal, and I love doing fun things like this, and I 100% recommend you guys try things like it too. It's just kind of fun to play with, you know, orientation and do something a little unorthodox. Okay, so here we are at the next spread in this video. This is going to be, well, okay, the title says December trackers, but it's multiple things. So on the top, I have what's going to be, I think, a health tracker. It could be a gratitude tracker if I decide not to track my health symptoms this month, but it's basically just going to be a list of all 31 days of December. Below it, I have a chart that is going to be my expenses tracker for this month. And on the right, I have a big brain dump space. I'll talk about that in just a second. First, let's talk about design. As I've talked about multiple times on this channel, sometimes I like to round out the corners of my boxes, you know, the boxes of my trackers, my calendars, any like chart in my bullet journal, that kind of thing, in certain months, because I feel like it lends to matching the style of the art that I'm using for the bullet journal theme. For example, last month for my lioness theme, I had pretty harsh and high contrast drawings. And so I felt like for that theme, I would prefer to have harsh angles, right? So all of my calendars had sharp angles on the corners. However, this theme is much more cartoonish, much more chill, cozy, playful. And so I feel like to lean into that more cartoonish vibe, I decided to round each of the corners. So as you can see, my expenses chart has rounded edges. My brain dump has a border with rounded edges. And the same thing goes for every single box that I've drawn in the setup so far. It's a little tough, but I like to add this kind of personalization. I feel like if you look through the spreads in my bullet journal, sometimes months have rounded ones, sometimes they have pointed ones, and it just makes each theme a little different from each other and adds something special to the spreads if you look a little closer. So I mentioned that this right spread is going to be a brain dump. This is for multiple things. Of course, Christmas is coming up, as I've mentioned a bajillion times in this video, and so usually I like to have a little brain dump spread in my December setups to plan any gift ideas I have for my friends and family, which means, friends and family, if any of you guys are watching this, you cannot steal my bullet journal and look into it this month because there may be a gift idea listed for you somewhere on this spread later in a couple weeks. So don't go peeking, okay? You don't want to spoil yourself, but that's what half of the spread is going to be for. I'm also going to use this spread to plan out any last minute things regarding a certain exciting business development that I have that I'm going to be announcing in literally a week or two. Like, I'm so excited to share this news with you guys and I cannot wait. So make sure, if you haven't already, that you subscribe to my channel. I post bullet journaling and productivity videos every single week, and also very soon I'm going to announce a very exciting announcement. So if you don't want to miss any of that news, definitely subscribe and stick around. But yeah, so that's what this spread on the right is going to be used for, and I cannot wait to just jot down all of my thoughts and get my life together. Like I said at the beginning or earlier in this video, there are quite a few things that I had to come back and fix in the earlier spreads. So in my rush to leave the house earlier, I didn't actually finish drawing all the art on this spread. So I had to add extra shadows into the trees because if you haven't noticed, I have been doing like darker shadows with a darker shade of green in the trees and then also multiple shades of brown on the wood, that kind of thing. I also wanted to add a little more red into the house and color in the door. And then on the front page, I'm going back and fixing this calendar because the red was bothering me. Well, what's also bothering me is the amount of like headshots doing in this video, like already looking at the top of my scalp, but whatever. So I put a piece of sticker paper over the red spot and cover it up, and then I redrew the lines to make it blend in perfectly with the calendar, and then I just drew a little tan grid instead. I feel like this goes much better to the theme because I had tan grids in the other pages. It's less of an eyesore, it's much cuter, and I also rewrote the numbers of the calendar in red over the gray that was originally there. So I feel like this pulls everything together, just trying to kind of come back and fix my mistakes. Lastly, I'm adding a little white gel pen onto each of the trees to add a little more snowy effect. It's not perfect, but from far away, I loved the vision and visual it gives, and I think it's a great finishing touch. Sometimes I don't like to go through the process of like actually going back and fixing these little changes. I kind of just like, you know what, whatever, it's fine. But this month I really wanted to be specific and intentional with my art, and I'm really glad I took the time to go and fix these little things to feel much better about my setup afterwards. Anyway, with that being said, this is the final flip through. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. Like I said earlier, subscribe below for more content from me because I'm actually planning on posting double in December. That's 2 videos a week, not 1. So I cannot wait to show you guys all of that content. Have an amazing month of December, and I'll see you guys in a few days for a very special announcement. Goodbye.